Hey everyone, this is Disc Junkie, and welcome back to Secondhand Sickness. And so in today's video, I am back in the man cave, as you can clearly see, and we're gonna shoot a purely indoors kind of video today, because, well, the car boot sale season is officially over, so there's really not a lot of that going on. But I have actually been able to pick up some really cool online finds that I want to talk about. And more specifically, this relates to Japanese rental DVDs and Blu-rays. And you might be wondering what I mean by this, but the thing is that Japan actually still has an active rental market as of 2025, which is just insane to think about. But yes, there are actually Japanese rental stores as we speak. So the thing that makes this even cooler, and which is why I sort of got into this, is that Japan also has this really unique rental case system, which essentially means that you have an external and an internal case, and then the internal case holds the actual DVD or Blu-ray. And this is something that's actually been in place since the VHS era. And the way it works is that you have the external and the internal case sitting on the rental shelf in the stores. You can browse them. And then when you find something you like, you just take the internal case, remove that from the external case, and you take this, walk over to the cashier counter, or sometimes there's even like a self-checkout system. And then you essentially scan this, like a barcode on it, and then you bring the small internal case with the disc in it, and that's essentially what you take home, and so now you've rented a movie. But it's so weird because, then you take this back and you sort of hand it off to a cashier when you leave it, or sometimes it's like a deposit box thingy, and then this is brought back to the shelf and placed back in the external case, which is still sitting on the shelf all this time. So this actually serves a purpose, because this means that other customers who are browsing the store, they will see some cases which don't have the internal case and some which do, because the internal case is literally sort of sitting inside the external case, so it's poking out at the top, and that's like an indication as to whether this specific title is in the case, meaning is it available or has it been rented out. So this means that even if you rent a movie, other customers will be able to browse it. They will see the external case, realize, this is available for rent, but not right now because someone has already rented it. So it's a very interesting and unique system, and this makes me think about like how rental stores for videotapes when I was growing up actually worked. And this had a completely different setup where you would always have like the empty cases sitting on the shelves in the store. So this is what you would browse, but there would never be a tape in it. And then you would take this empty case over to the cashier counter, and they would sort of fetch the videotape or the DVD or Blu-ray, whatever, from behind the counter, and then you would take the disc or the tape together with the rental case home with you. So you actually got everything, so to speak. And so it's so interesting to sort of compare cultures like this and the different system, because I don't think there's any other country than Japan that has this sort of bizarre two-case system. So I thought it was really interesting, and I felt like I really wanted to start collecting these because they're not really that common and they're quite hard to get outside of Japan. And even on eBay, there's not a whole lot of sellers that actually sell the cases. A lot of the time, these will just be replaced by regular keep cases or regular VHS cases. And I think it's really cool to actually be able to get these cases. So we're gonna check these out, but I also want to say that I think it's interesting how in Japan, the customers literally have access to the DVDs, Blu-rays, videotapes as they're browsing. And this seems so very strange, because in Sweden and in other countries, I don't think this would ever happen, because most countries would be too afraid that people would essentially just steal the movies, because, they're right there. And commonly, why they would always be kept behind the counter, at least as far as Sweden goes, and I think for most other countries as well, is obviously because they don't want to risk people stealing them. So apparently this is not the case in Japan, and I've been sort of considering why that would be. Like, is there a cultural difference? Like, people in Japan are not as prone to actually stealing stuff? And there might actually be something to this. I tried to sort of read up on this, and I think that generally, for one thing, Japan is very strict. I think people are sort of more inclined to abide by the laws and rules. And that is, for one thing, because I think Japan actually has a more strict sort of system in regards to when it comes to stealing. Like, for example, if you steal a movie or you download a movie, more specifically, I think this is actually considered like a more serious crime in Japan, and you can actually go to jail for something like that, which, you know, if you compare this to some other countries, I don't think it would fetch quite as high of a sort of sentence if you were to do that. So I guess that could be part of it. But also I would say that generally Japan just has a very sort of deeply rooted collectors sort of culture. People are very sort of invested in collectability and collecting physical media and physical items in general. So that would obviously also sort of trickle over into the rental market, that people are just very fond of physical releases and physical media in general. So I definitely think that helps. And also I've actually heard that when it comes to the connectivity, like the Wi-Fi and stuff like that, Japan actually has quite a bit of issues with like storms and the weather, which can impact the connectivity and the stability of their Wi-Fi connections. And so this could also be part of why people are very sort of interested in having the possibility to actually rent stuff and know that, you know, I can go home tonight and I can watch that movie. I don't really have to be dependent on the fact as to whether my lousy Wi-Fi works or not. But, you know, I'm not from Japan. I don't really know all of this stuff. This is just what I've been able to come up with. I've been sort of researching it online. But I am really interested in these cases, and I really hope you will enjoy them. So let's just head on over to the table and take a look at what I've been able to pick up. And so here we have my first Japanese rental, and this is actually a videotape and something I picked quite a few years ago. I think there's actually an old video of this. Okay, so we're now done at Plopsy, and I actually ended up getting a bunch of stuff which I didn't expect. I guess you could say that I sort of got pulled in when I found this really weird Japanese VHS, which is The Pickup Artist, which I haven't seen, so I'm not really sure if I'm a fan of that or anything.
But there's Molly Ringwald.
Yeah, and
you have to be a fan of Molly.
And I want to bring this in because I wanted to show you that the overall case structure is the same even for videotapes. So as you can see here, we have an external case, and then you have this internal case poking out at the top. And I don't read Japanese, but I assume that this text is just something confirming that the tape is, you know, in the case. I don't know, like it just says okay. I don't really know. But so the way this works, if you just flip this over, you have like your regular printout, and it seems like this case is slightly larger than your typical VHS rental or VHS case, because you can see there's some missing here. I don't know if this was because they cut it down or whatever, but so maybe the regular VHS clamshells are a bit larger than what the inserts in Japan usually are like. But this case does work like a regular case, so you can essentially pop it open, or should be able to. I haven't done this in a while, but I think it's just okay. That is really stuck in there, but yeah, it should be openable. And even if it isn't, you can actually slide the interior case out. This is the whole point of the setup. So you will see this on the shelf. You see that there's a movie inside. You know it's available for rent. You take the internal case out, leave this on the shelf, so other people can see, oh, this is a movie that's available, but it's actually currently rented out. So just a very, very unique system. And then you have this internal case, which is essentially just like a plastic slipcase. And from my understanding, these cases are actually generic. So this text here doesn't have anything to do with the specific title. They essentially use generic cases which are identical for all movies. Obviously, there can be different designs, but it doesn't have any sort of, you know, writing that relates to the pickup artist specifically. And then you just have a regular VHS tape inside it. So I know I've shown this in the past many years ago, but I want to bring this back just as an example. And here you can also see that there is actually an internal or a sort of background text which you can only see when you take the internal case out. This is sort of obscured by the case when it's there. So I assume, if someone reads Japanese, feel free to confirm this, but I assume this text is sort of like an indication, say like rented out or something like that. And then presumably this says available or to rent, whatever. I'm guessing that because this is obstructed, so that's just my guess, but feel free to comment in case anybody actually knows. So this is the first tape I want to show. Like I said, very old pickup, but still thought it was valid. And I'm also going to show you one more VHS tape before we begin, and this is also a tape I found many years ago. You can see this has a slightly different design for the internal case, but this is obviously the Hitcher starring Rutger Hauer, and I just think this is a very cool design as well. It is quite faded, and a lot of the times rentals will be faded, but even so, I really like this. It's a cool looking case. See if, why can I not open these? Are they that stuck together? Regardless of which, works the same way. So here is a slide out, even though it's a slightly different design. And this one does not have a little flap at the top. So apparently there are, you know, different types of designs for these cases, but the overall idea is the same. So here you have the plastic slipcase or sleeve. And then here is just the tape. So yeah, I am loving this. I would love to get more of these rental cases, just to be able to have them on the shelf. But, oh yeah, okay, so this does pop out. It was just a bit stuck there. But with that said, the cases themselves are unique. These are not just like VHS cases that someone modified. You can see that there is actually literally a specific slip design. So obviously you could keep a tape in here without the case, but I just want to clarify that it's not like someone took a regular VHS clamshell and cut it open. Like, this is a product printed this way. This was designed like this, has specific slip design to it. And I mean, you can tell this from the other case because there you even have this additional flap. So obviously it's not just a case that someone modified. So yeah. But with that said, let's just move on to actually looking at the rest of the stuff I got. And this is new stuff, and these are rental DVDs and Blu-rays, which I was not aware of. I had never realized that DVDs and Blu-rays for the rental market in Japan literally has the same type of case design as the VHS tapes did. So this was really exciting news to me, and I'm absolutely stoked that I was able to get these. Now, I will say that there was a whole lot of issues with this. I gently bought them, and then when I got them, the seller had literally removed the rental cases and just shipped the discs and the inserts because they didn't think anybody cared about them. And so this was literally the only thing I wanted to get. So I ended up spending quite a bit of money. He did ship them to me sort of for free, but I sort of had to pay like an additional import fee. I would say that probably each of these were something like $20 to $30 per movie, which, you know, I suppose is not a super high price, but given that a lot of these are DVDs and rental DVDs, you know, it's pretty much money. But regardless of which, I do love them, and let's go ahead and check it out. So first up is the movie Alien Resurrection. And, you know, not my favorite Alien movie at all, probably the worst even. But even so, very cool case and obviously a classic title. And I am very much an Alien fan, so I really wanted to get this. So here you can see we have something that looks like a very traditional DVD case. Got your front, got your spine, got your back. Obviously everything's printed in Japanese. I'm trying to show you some of the details. But then you have this internal case, which has only the disc in it. And then you have this little printing at the top, which is also generic. And here you can also see, I think there's like even a small instruction on how to open the case, which hopefully I won't need because I've done this before. Okay, so quite simple. And then you just, you know, pop the disc out. So obviously very standard. But this is what the cases look like. An odd little cutout up there, which I think also sort of connect to how the case looks inside. So go ahead and open this up. You can see this is also not a standard keep case that was modified. This is literally sort of manufactured like this because it has this very specific slide and design with a stop down here so it doesn't just rattle around. And so yeah, this is the way the case design works. And the whole rental process is the same for VHS and DVDs, I would assume. Or I mean, nowadays you wouldn't have VHS tapes in the rental stores, but back when they did, I assume the process was identical. So that is the first pickup. Really nice title, if you ask me. I would love to get all the Alien movies as rentals, but not even sure if they are available. So that's number one. Next up, I have quite a unexpected title in terms of Japan, because this is also an international movie, but a lesser known one. And this is Troll Hunter, which is actually a Norwegian film, which had quite a bit of following. It became like an international hit, and it's like this mockumentary found footage movie about trolls. And I think this is really cool, and I also like the Japanese text and just the general design. The overall cover art is pretty much the same as you would see. It's a very sort of common cover for this movie, but just the fact that it's Japanese, I mean, I really like the striking design of these. And here's just the back, going for a closer look. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. And then I'll obviously have the slide out. Now I'm not going to open each and every case because they look the same, but I will show you the discs just because these are obviously a bit more interesting. Now I will say that some of these discs are definitely rental specific. I mean, I don't know in general if this particular one is, but I'm pretty sure that there are some of these which are literally like rental editions, like the discs will be rental specific. But I also think that there are some versions which will essentially just have reutilized the standard disc from the standard version and placed it in a rental specific case. But, you know, I can't promise, but I think that's it. Because it should also be noted that the inserts on these are, you know, the case itself is a little bit slimmer than your regular keep case. We might actually compare this. And so if I just grab a regular keep case for a, you know, Scandinavian film, you can see if I hold this up that this case is actually slightly slimmer and even slightly deeper. You can see that it's poking out like roughly half centimeter. And so this means that the insert will fit, but it is actually, you know, it's like they sort of squished it. And I suppose the idea behind this is because if they didn't do that, if they didn't widen the case and sort of slightly flatten it, they wouldn't be able to have this internal case because there's not a whole lot of space. Like if you take this to a regular one, it wouldn't really fit in there. It wouldn't be able to slide. So I guess this is something that they designed. They just realized we can't, you know, push the spacing here anymore. We're going to have to widen the cases. But yeah, just a generally really clever way to do it, making a specific case which can actually hold the same type of insert, even though it's a slightly different size. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about this. I'm just so crazy for these right now, and I'm so happy that I got them. And next up is a title which is an absolute favorite for me. This is THX1138. This is George Lucas' directorial debut based off of his short film, which was THX1138 4EB, something like that. But this is the feature-length one with Robert Duvall, and it's just such a classic sci-fi movie, so I thought it was really cool to get this in the Japanese version. I would have loved some alternate graphics, like big Japanese writing or something, because this is very much the same as your typical sort of international cover for this movie. And also, just looking at the spine, looking at the back, this seems to be actually the first disc off of a 2-disc set. So here we can just move in for a closer look. This looks somewhat similar to the sort of classic director's cut special edition that came out of this movie in the rest of the world. But if we're opening this up, just gonna do this. I don't know why I was doing this. Why was I opening? Oh, sorry. I'm just messing things up. I was gonna open this. So yeah, what I wanted to show you is that if I pop this open, you can see that this looks very much like a traditional disc. Like it's not, doesn't have a whole bunch of marketing or anything. It looks very simple, and it also says disc 1. So presumably this is just the first disc from the standard 2-disc edition of this movie, because this release commonly had 2 discs for the, like, you know, the director's cut special editions. It comes with 2 discs. And I know I have the American version of this. It's also a 2-disc set where the second disc essentially has like a making of documentary and stuff like that. And when I check this, I realized there's no extras on it. It just has the movie and like, I think an audio commentary track maybe. So that's sort of the indication why I think this was actually a regular retail version that's essentially been remodified as a rental. Because, I mean, the insert, I don't know if you read like the details on this. I don't read Japanese, but maybe can't, I mean, I don't know if this says anywhere that there should be 2 discs. I noticed a 4 down there, but obviously there wouldn't be 4 discs, so yeah, regardless of which, this might actually be the standard cover for the 2-disc edition. Feel free to comment that in case everybody knows. But yeah, so that is the third movie. Really great title. Really happy to have picked it up. And so now we have a few titles left. And next up is another title which I thought was especially cool to get in a Japanese edition. And this is the movie Only God Forgives. Now I remember watching this Ryan Gosling movie. It was very sort of hyped, but I feel that maybe it didn't do as well as expected. You know, don't quote me on that, but that's sort of my opinion. I remember watching this myself, thought it looked amazing, but ultimately I would, you know, a bit sort of, I don't know, wasn't super sort of psyched about it. It felt like I watched it and I was like, I expected it to be better, to be honest. But then again, it was many years since I watched this. I think there was a whole lot of hype about this movie. Sort of, you know, Ryan Gosling had previously done the movie Drive, where he was acting like, you know, this total badass, just beating people up and just generally really cool. And then came this movie, which was sort of built a lot around the sort of premise of Ryan Gosling, you know, being in Japan. This is set in Japan, and you're sort of expecting him to fight this guy, and you expect it to be like this showdown. But throughout the movie, Ryan Gosling is essentially a bit of a wuss, to be honest. And I think with that, you know, this movie was marketed a bit strangely. Regardless of which, this movie takes place in Japan, and it's just a very cool release to have in a Japanese version because of that. Because I feel like with the whole rental thing, cover design, I just love it. I think it's a great cover, great release, and just really, really cool to have. I also think this might be the only version of all these movies which is not 100% English friendly. The thing is that this does have English subtitles, but I think for the Japanese portions of the movie, seeing as there is Japanese dialogue, I'm not sure if they subtitled that. I don't remember, but I think, you know, I popped this in to check. I think I realized that, oh, maybe the Japanese dialogue doesn't have subtitles, so not maybe the version I would suggest in case you want to own this on DVD and be able to watch it and you don't speak Japanese. But regardless of which, a very cool cover design to have. And so that's the fourth one. Now we have 3 left, and next up is another Ryan Gosling title, which was actually the sort of main prize for me. I sort of decided to pick up a bunch of these based on finding this one. And it is a rental-specific version of Blade Runner 2049. I mean, this has to be like the ultimate movie to own on Japanese rental DVD. I think it's just, you know, looks so awesome to have in this specific Japanese design. Love the writing on the cover, and this also says rental version, so this is obviously rental specific, sort of different to the common retail version. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this movie. Quite honestly, I think that this surpasses the original. I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me. I think the original is great, but I just think that this is a more interesting movie about sort of the themes they discuss and the general thoughts about what it means to be human or to be a replicant or to be an AI. I just think it sort of breaches so many new interesting ideas, and for that I just really prefer this movie over the original, even though they're obviously a sequel, so it's one story. But just bringing out the point that I absolutely love this. And so here we have the disc. Pop this open. So there we go, Blade Runner 2049. Sort of hard to read maybe, the silvery against the red, but yeah. So that's that. Oh, I don't remember if I showed you the disc for Only God Forgives. Might have forgotten that, but if so, there it is. Very bright blue, beautiful disc. So these have obviously all been DVDs, and even though that is really cool, I was also really happy and fortunate to be able to find a couple of Blu-ray editions. So DVDs and Blu-rays are available for rent in Japan. I wouldn't say that the Blu-ray versions are rare or anything, but I thought it was really cool to find a couple of Blu-rays for movies which I really, really wanted to own. And the first one is actually the Japanese Blu-ray edition of Prometheus. And I am really into Alien right now. I'm watching fan edits and I just really sort of start to appreciate Prometheus and Alien Covenant a whole lot more. I know a lot of people don't like the prequels. so to speak, but I'm actually growing really fond of them. I remember when I watched them back in the day, sort of watching them in theaters, my overall experience wasn't the best. But I still liked parts of them, and some things I really hated. I suppose I've sort of mellowed with age, and generally just think that they are better movies right now because I've sort of grown to love them in parts. And also with fan edits, I just think there are some really cool options out there that really improve the movie by adding deleted scenes back in and stuff like that. And so I was really happy to get this, and also because Japan and Alien, they just have this really cool history. If you look at it from like a release standpoint, Japan was the first country to issue the Alien Head edition on DVD, like the whole box set. And just generally, they tend to do really sort of cool collector's editions for a lot of movies, but especially for Alien, because it feels like, Japan is a country that really loves the Alien franchise. So with that said, this is the Blu-ray edition of Prometheus. Maybe this is rental specific. I know that the disc itself has a whole bunch of sort of text on it. I presume this is a whole lot of marketing. So I think this might mean that this is actually a rental specific disc. I'm not 100% sure, but it might be. And I checked the contents of this, and this seems to have not really any special features, seems to be essentially the first disc from a standard disc set. I'm not saying it is from a retail set, but it sort of contains the same specifications. And it's also interesting to note that if you go looking for Japanese Blu-rays, you want to make sure that you can actually play them, because curiously enough, Japan actually uses region A for Blu-rays. The reason why this is fascinating is because America uses region A, Europe uses region B, so on a normal European player I wouldn't be able to play this, but I actually picked up a region-free Blu-ray player recently, and this is obviously not something you can get like in regular stores. You have to go to special stores, and there's like a hardware mod to be able to get a Blu-ray player that can play any kind of disc. But what I was saying is that America and Japan use region A, so you would need an American Blu-ray player to be able to play this disc. But it's so confusing, because if you look at the history of Japanese releases, Japanese DVDs, on the other hand, they use region 2. And region 2 is the same region that Europe uses. So if you have an American DVD player, you can't play Japanese DVDs. But if you have an American Blu-ray player, you can play Japanese Blu-rays. And it's like, why did you make things so complicated? But in any case, I'm rambling on about this. This is not really important for the video. Just thought it was interesting to mention. And so this was the second to last one. And now we have the last edition that I want to show today. And this is also my favorite pickup of the lot, I think, aside from Blade Runner 2049, which was just, I had to have that on DVD. But here we have the last one, and it is a really fun surprise because we are talking about Alien Covenant on Blu-ray. And I did not own Alien Covenant on Blu-ray, or everything else, but I didn't own Alien Covenant. And so I was sort of expecting this to be like a bare bones edition, but then when I got it, I realized that this disc, even though it might be rental specific, I don't know, it's actually a direct port of your standard Alien Covenant disc, which means that this literally has all of these special features that you would commonly find on the retail editions of Alien Covenant. And with that, it's got like the feature-length documentary, like the Ridley Scott Masterclass thing, got all of the deleted scenes, all the promos, everything that was available on your standard sort of one-disc edition of Alien Covenant, this one actually has. So that was so cool, because that's a lot of features which I didn't actually own on any version, and with that, actually a really cool pickup. And even so, this is also English friendly. I mean, I know I mentioned that most of these, I think pretty much all of them, maybe except one, have English subtitles and they're optional. So yeah, it's actually a really nice pickup, even if you're, I'm primarily getting these because I really love the cover design. But even so, if you want to watch it, I mean, I was really happy to realize that Alien Covenant was English friendly, and Prometheus as well, just seeing as these are Blu-rays, so it's cool to be able to watch them, and especially with all of these special features for Covenant, which I don't think I've seen in entirely. I just think I've seen some of them. But that is pretty much it for this video. Oh, and maybe I forgot to show you the Alien Covenant disc. So yeah, there it is in case you want to see it. And the last thing I might mention is that you see there are these stickers on here, the Blu-ray stickers for the top. These are also generic, so they would be the same for each case. There's nothing really specific related to the movie on these stickers up here. They're just to show whether the internal case is there or not. However, you will notice that there's also these stickers on top, which have like a small number on them or a high number, and these are matching. So that's how you match, like this is movie number 2846, that goes in case 2846. And what happened was that, seeing as I bought these in a bundle and the seller managed to remove all of the rental cases, and I suppose throw those away because he was, dealing a lot with the selling rental copies. So I assume he just tends to do this every time because you want to save on shipping. You remove the cases, just ship the discs and the inserts, because most people don't care about this. But I was really adamant about getting the actual cases. And so when I contacted him, obviously the original sort of cases that were for these specific movies weren't there anymore. So this literally means that the numbers will mismatch. I mean, these numbers are the same, but if you check some of these stickers that are on the insert, here it says 0263, which is probably like the corresponding number. Like this should have 0263 there and should be matched. So, I mean, that is obviously a shame. And I know a lot of these, like here, you don't really have an indication like that. Maybe it did have a sticker at some point, but for a lot of these, you will see like here as well. Here it doesn't have a matching sticker, so it's very much random. Some will have the sticker, some will not, and maybe could it be that the Blu-ray copies have the sticker at the top? I don't know. But regardless of which, I was so stoked to be able to get these, and I just think that they are so cool. I love these. I would love to get more Blu-ray and DVDs from Japan in the rental version, because I think these are just super interesting. And well, hopefully you've learned something new and maybe realized that there is these really unusual case designs in Japan for the rental market. Because like I said, I mean, I've been collecting movies for so many years now, and I'm well aware of Japanese rentals and the Japanese collector's editions to whatnot, but I had never in my life actually seen these rental specific cases when it came to DVDs and Blu-rays. So that was news to me, and just really cool to find out, because now obviously I have a brand new fascination for Japanese rentals, so maybe it wasn't too good of a thing anyway, because now I'm gonna start buying these for too much money. But that is it. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, hoping that you learned something about Japan. And with that, I just want to say thank you very much for watching, and as usual, hope to see you all next time.